welcome all of you for today's Srimad Bhagavatam session. Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 4, Appearance of Sri Narada, Text 9. अभिमन्युसुतं सूता प्राहुर्भागवतोत्तमम् तस्य जन्म महाश्चर्यं कर्माणि च गृह्णीनः कर्माणि च गृह्णीनः. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Shaunaka Rishi continued. It is said that Mahārāja Parīkṣit is a great first-class devotee of the Lord and that his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please tell us about him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The birth of Mahārāja Parīkṣit is wonderful because in the womb of his mother he was protected by the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. His activities are also wonderful because he chastised Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow. To kill cows means to end human civilization. He wanted to protect the cow from being killed by the great representative of sin. His death is also wonderful because he got previous notice of his death, which is wonderful for any mortal being. And thus he prepared himself by passing away, by sitting down on the bank of the Ganges, and hearing the transcendental activities of the Lord. During all the days he heard Bhagavatam, he did not take food or drink, nor did he sleep a moment. So everything about him is wonderful, and his activities are worth hearing attentively. Desire is expressed herein to hear about him in detail. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So we are continuing to read the questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Suta Goswami. Shaunaka Rishi is the leader of the assembly of the sages of Naimisharanya, and as we have seen, he is the spokesperson for all of them, and he is a great devotee of the Lord, a great scholar, and he was also the senior most devotee among all the sages who had assembled in the Naimisharanya forest, desiring to perform a 1,000-year-long sacrifice. So, Shaunaka Rishi, he is asking questions to Suta Goswami about Bhagavatam. So we saw so far Shaunaka Rishi asking about how Srila Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, what was his inspiration, what were the circumstances which led him to compile Srimad Bhagavatam. We also saw how Shaunaka Rishi asked about Shukadev Goswami, the great liberated soul who happened to be the son of Srila Vyasadeva. So he was interested to know how did such a liberated personality take interest in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he also is now asking in this particular verse about the great emperor Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So let us see what Shaunaka Rishi is saying about Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Abhimanyu Sutam Suta. Suta means O Suta Goswami. Abhimanyu Sutam, the son of Abhimanyu. As we all know, Abhimanyu is the son of Arjuna, and Abhimanyu's son is Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit was born as the son of Abhimanyu and his wife Uttara Devi, right? Therefore, here Parikshit Maharaj is addressed as or referred to as Abhimanyu Sutam. And then Prahuhu. Prahuhu means is said to be. Abhimanyu Sutam is said to be Bhagavata Uttamam, the first class devotee of the Lord. So this Mahārāja Parīkṣit is not an ordinary person. He is a Uttama, Bhagavatottamam, the best among the first class devotee of the Supreme Lord. So this fact was known to all the sages of Naimisharanya. Tasya Janma Mahāścharyam Karmani cha Grihni Naha. Naha means to all of us. Grihnihi means please speak to us. What should you speak to us? Tasya Janma Mahāścharyam. Tasya refers to Bhagavatottamam Abhimanyu Sutam, that is Mahārāja Parīkṣit. His Janma, his birth is Maha Ashcharyam. It is very wonderful. And his karmani, his activities are also wonderful. So please speak to us about Mahārāja Parīkṣit, who was a Maha Bhagavatottama and whose activities and birth are all wonderful. That is a question asked by Shaunaka Rishi. Now, from the questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi, we understand how eager were all the sages of Naimisharanya to hear topics connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, eagerness is something very, very important that a devotee must develop or must possess, this quality of eagerness, which makes him qualified to receive the transcendental messages connected with the Lord. If one is not eager, then it's like only when there is thirst, we appreciate the value of water, isn't it? If there is no thirst in us, even if we are surrounded by huge quantities of water, we don't value the water or we take it for granted. In the same way, Bhagavatam is present. Bhagavatam is the ocean of knowledge pertaining to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we have discussed previously that Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. But if we have to take the advantage of the presence of Bhagavatam, then we must have the eagerness to read Bhagavatam, to hear Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada has painstakingly written the commentaries, the purports for all the verses of Bhagavatam for our benefit. And we must take interest, we must have eagerness, the thirst to actually study and understand what Srila Prabhupada is trying to convey in his Bhakti Vedanta purports. So if that eagerness is not there, then we will not be able to take advantage of Bhagavatam and the other transcendental literatures given to us by Srila Prabhupada. So the first lesson that we have to learn from the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi, is the eagerness to hear about the Lord and his exalted pure devotees. That is very important. Now, here the word Mahāścharyam is very interesting, significant word in this shloka. Prabhupada is explaining Mahāścharyam means greatly wonderful, very much, very wonderful. So everything about Mahārāja Parīkṣit is wonderful. Why? Because first of all, his birth is wonderful. We all know when Mahārāja Parīkṣit was in the womb of his mother Uttara, then Ashwathama releases his Brahmastra to actually kill him even while he was in the womb of his mother. And at that time, the Supreme Lord Krishna himself enters the womb of Uttara to protect Mahārāja Parīkṣit from the Brahmastra. And it was at that time that Mahārāja Parīkṣit was able to see the Lord for the first time. Even before coming out of the mother's womb, Mahārāja Parīkṣit could actually have darshan of the Lord. So how greatly fortunate he is, isn't it? And since Mahārāja Parīkṣit had seen this wonderful personality, Lord Krishna, within the womb of his mother, after he took birth, after he came out of the mother's womb, he started examining everybody whom he came across in this material world. He started examining, he started seeing, is this the person whom I saw within my mother's womb? He was observing everybody like this. He was examining. That is why he is called Parīkṣit. So one who actually examined everybody, he is called Parīkṣit, right? So he examined everybody. That means from the very beginning of his existence in this material world, he was a devotee. He was personally blessed by the Lord. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit is also known by another name called Vishnu Rata. Vishnu Rata means one who was personally protected by Lord Vishnu or Krishna himself. He is called Vishnu Rata. And as Parīkṣit grew up as a small boy, that we will see in the coming chapters in the very first canto, he would actually play with dolls of Lord Krishna. Generally, children play with some dolls, right? So, dolls of various animals or, some things like that. But Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he was playing with dolls of Krishna, and he would imitate his elderly members of his family of their worship of the deity in their house, in the palace. So he would also worship these dolls. That means he was so attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even as a child. And then when he grew up and he took charge of the empire, he became the emperor of the whole world. And we see in the very first canto of Bhagavatam, in the later chapters, that how he was such a benevolent ruler. He would take care of the kingdom, all the citizens in his country, in the kingdom, the whole world, just like his own children. He was so affectionate towards them. And he ruled the kingdom exactly as per the instructions given by the Supreme Lord himself. So even his ruling, his administrating the entire kingdom, he did it as a seva to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So he was fully attached to the Lord. And then his activities are wonderful. Prabhupada is giving one example here that, once when Parīkṣit Maharaj was actually traveling in his kingdom, trying to find out if everything is in proper order, that time he came across a Shudra person dressed as a king, and he was actually harassing, he was actually creating problems with a stick. He was holding a stick in his hand and he was actually beating a cow and a bull. He was seeing this. And immediately he got down from his chariot and he actually chastised that person. So he actually chastised. That person was none other than Kali himself, Kali Purusha himself. So he was actually, attempting to kill the cow, and Mahārāja Parīkṣit immediately stopped him, chastised him, and also punished him severely. So from these activities, we understand that Mahārāja Parīkṣit's activities and his appearance in this material world, these are all very, very wonderful. These are all extraordinary. That's why Shaunaka Rishi is saying, Tasya Janma Mahāscharyam. So his activities and his birth, all these are Maha Ashcharyam, very, very wonderful. So just like hearing about the activities of the Supreme Lord in his various incarnations is liberating, in the same way, hearing about the pure devotees of the Lord who are completely dedicated to his service, about them, about their appearance in this material world and their activities is also equally liberating. right? So that is the reason why Shaunaka Rishi is asking about Maharaj Parikshit. Actually speaking, if you see from a social status point of view, Shaunaka Rishi and all the other sages who had assembled in the Naimisharanya forest, they were all far superior compared to Maharaj Parikshit because they were all Brahmanas, they were all in the renounced order of their life. Whereas Maharaj Parikshit was a Grihastha and he was a Kshatriya. But here we understand that because Maharaj Parikshit was a Bhagavatottama, he was the first class devotee of the Lord, who are very rare actually. Hmm. Pure devotees are very, very rare. The same Bhagavatam 6th canto mentions that you may find crores and crores of Brahmanas who are great scholars, but to find one pure devotee of the Lord who is Narayana Parayana, who is completely dedicated to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, to find such an exalted devotee is extremely rare. Sudurlabha. They are very, very rare. So therefore, Shaunaka Rishi is interested to hear about Maharaj Parikshit, who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Now, another thing that Prabhupada is mentioning with respect to Maharaj Parikshit chastising Kali, who went to kill the cow, Prabhupada is saying to kill cows means to end human civilization. He wanted to protect the cow from being killed by the great representative of sin, right? So, killing cow is actually the biggest threat to human civilization. Why? Because cow is our mother, and we just like we drink milk from our mother when we are small babies. When we grow up, we drink milk from the cow, and therefore cow is our mother. And killing cow means the human civilization is becoming very, very insensitive. That means they are killing their own mother, and that is greatly sinful. And that results in many sinful reactions. Therefore, it is going to finally destroy the entire human civilization. And Maharaj Parikshit knew this very well, and that is why he chastised the Kali Purusha who was about to kill the cow. We will understand more about all these incidents in the coming chapters of the first canto of Bhagavatam. Now, Maharaj Parikshit's birth was wonderful, his activities were wonderful. What about his passing away? Yes, his death was also wonderful because generally nobody gets a prior notice before death. But Maharaj Parikshit got to know that he's going to die in 7 days' time. So that's something wonderful. That's the arrangement of the Lord. And this incident was personally orchestrated by the Lord himself so that through him, the sublime literature of Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken or was made available to the entire human society of Kali Yuga. Right? So he, for 7 days continuously, 7 days and nights, Maharaj Parikshit went on hearing Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami and without taking any food, drink, or even sleeping. And he, through him, so in this way, Maharaj Parikshit became an instrument in, in reaching out to all the suffering souls in the material world in Kali Yuga, the sublime Srimad Bhagavatam. Right? So he was very attentively hearing the entire Bhagavatam. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying everything about him is wonderful and his activities are worth hearing attentively. So that is why Shaunaka Rishi is asking about Maharaj Parikshit. So let us see the next shloka, text number 10. Sasamrat kasya vaheto pandunam manavardhanaha प्रायोपविष्टो गंगायाम अनादृत्याधिराट श्रियम. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Shaunaka Rishi continued, he was a great emperor and possessed all the opulences of his acquired kingdom. He was so exalted that he was increasing the prestige of Pandu dynasty. Why did he give up everything to sit down on the bank of the Ganges and fast until death? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was the emperor of the world and all the seas and oceans, and he did not have to take the trouble to achieve such a kingdom by his own effort. He inherited it from his grandfathers, Mahārāja Yudhishthira and brothers. Besides that, he was doing well in the administration and was worthy of the good names of his forefathers. Consequently, there was nothing undesirable in his opulence and administration. Then why should he give up all these favorable circumstances and sit down on the bank of the Ganges fasting till death? This is astonishing, and therefore all were eager to know the cause. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So here in this shloka, Shaunaka Rishi is continuing to ask some more things about Mahārāja Parīkṣit, especially about the last few days of his life. Sa samrat kasya va hetoho. Sa samrat. Samrat means the king of all kings. He is the Maharaja, Rajadi Raja, the emperor actually. He was the emperor. Sa samrat kasya. Kasya means for what? Hetoho. Reason. Now, for what reason did this Samrat, emperor, who was actually having full opulence, as Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, he had inherited a very, very big kingdom. Practically the entire world was under his jurisdiction. And he had inherited it from his grandfathers, that is Mahārāja Yudhishthira, and all the Pandavas. They had actually conquered the whole world. They were ruling over the whole world, Mahārāja Yudhishthira. And after Mahārāja Yudhishthira retired, went to the forest, then this Mahārāja Parīkṣit inherited the entire world as his kingdom. He did not have to work hard to get this kingdom. He just inherited it. In that way, materially also, he was very, very opulent. He was very, very fortunate, isn't it? Generally, the idea that people have in this material world is, if you are materially not well to do, if you were unsuccessful repeatedly in your endeavors to attain material fulfillment, then you get frustrated, then you think about spirituality. That is the general idea about spirituality or liberation in this material world, isn't it? Whereas such situations did not exist for Mahārāja Parīkṣit, because Mahārāja Parīkṣit was living in opulence. He was the emperor of the whole world. He was materially well off. But still, why did he give up his kingdom? That is a question here of Shaunaka Rishi. And another interesting quality of Mahārāja Parīkṣit is mentioned here. Pandunam Manavardhanaha. Pandunam means of the sons of Pandu, that is Pandavas. Pandunam, of the Pandavas. Manavardhanaha. He was enriching the family of the Pandavas. He was actually bringing a good name. He was increasing the prestige of the Pandavas through his activities. Right? The Pandavas were such exalted personalities. Right? They were directly the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord personally helped the Pandavas in so many ways, as we all know. The Supreme Lord was so much sold out because of the love and affection and pure devotion, surrender of the Pandavas, that Krishna himself acted as a messenger for the Pandavas. Krishna acted as their counsel, minister. He gave them advice. Not only that, Krishna became the chariot driver for Arjuna. So all the Pandavas were so surrendered to Krishna that it is also mentioned in the Bhagavatam that Krishna was not so interested to go back to Dwaraka. He would always be there, would like to, he wanted to be there in Indraprastha because of the love and affection of Yudhishthir Maharaj. He was feeling, he was feeling separation. The Lord was feeling separation from the Pandavas whenever he had to go back to Dwaraka. So that was the position, the standard of the Pandavas. Now, their grandson, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, was also such an exalted personality. He's a Mahabhagavata, Bhagavatottama, and he also, uh, kept up the name and fame of the Pandavas by providing first-class administration of the kingdom. We will see that how Yudhishthir Maharaj ruled and how Mahārāja Parīkṣit ruled. Both are described in the first canto of Bhagavatam. You know, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, when he was ruling, there was no shortage of any natural resources in the kingdom. Everybody were very, very happy and satisfied. The same was the case when Maharaj Yudhishthira was ruling. So, therefore, here it is said, Pandunam Manavardhanaha. The character and conduct of Mahārāja Parīkṣit was befitting him as the grandson of the Pandavas. By studying him, by seeing his activities, one could understand that this person is really fit to be called as the grandson of the Pandavas. Isn't it? Sometimes what happens, we see somebody will be a very great person, maybe a social worker or a selfless leader in the society, but his children and grandchildren will be totally opposite to that person, isn't it? Somebody who is so charitable, now his children and grandchildren, they will be totally opposite. They will not try to do any help to the others or something like that. So then we can know, we'll say, see what kind of person has been born in what kind of family, isn't it? So it's totally, there is no connection at all, totally opposite. But Mahārāja Parīkṣit was not like that. Mahārāja Parīkṣit, one could say that he is truly the grandson of the Pandavas because his qualities and his way of administering the kingdom was like that. Very, very, very excellent. That's why here it is called Pandunam Manavardhanaha. One more important thing we should also understand. Whenever we are associated with an exalted personality, either through birth or through being a follower, immediately there is a great amount of responsibility on our shoulders, right? Somebody who's born in a very great family, there is a huge responsibility on his or her shoulders to make sure that he or she keeps up the good name and prestige of that family. Now, that is the reason why many times in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna addresses Arjuna as Kaunteya, son of Kunti, or Pandava, the son of Pandu Maharaj, right? So, Prabhupada explains in one place that you are the son of Kunti, who was so strong in spite of so many challenges. She raised her 5 sons alone like a single mother. She was so strong. And you, Arjuna, being the son of such a strong lady, you are becoming so weak emotionally on this battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, this is not befitting you. Your position as Partha, as a son of Prutha, Kunti Devi, you are not bringing fame to your mother by these kind of activities. So, Krishna, by addressing Arjuna as Partha, he is reminding Arjuna about his responsibility towards his mother. Your mother was such a tough lady, and you are speaking like a coward, like a weak person. So this is not correct. Speak like the son of Kunti Devi. That is the intention why Krishna addresses Arjuna as Partha in many places. So, or that is by birth. Now, another could be by as a follower. Like we are all trying to be the disciples and followers of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Now, when we present ourselves to the people of this world, they will always see us. Oh, he is a ISKCON devotee. He is a ISKCON follower. Oh, he is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Now, by seeing our behavior, they will make a judgment about Srila Prabhupada and about his organization, his movement. Therefore, we should always be very careful that our activities should be Srila Prabhupada Manavardhanaha. Our activities should be such that it increases the name and fame of Srila Prabhupada and his pure movement. That is very important. Our activities and speech should not be which is going to create a negative image for Srila Prabhupada and his organization. Then we are doing disservice to Srila Prabhupada. So once we profess that, once we claim that we are followers of Srila Prabhupada, we should actually behave properly, especially when we are dealing with others. Very, very important. The way we dress, the way we speak, the way we present ourselves, it should all increase. If not increase the name and fame of Srila Prabhupada, at least it should not bring bad name to Srila Prabhupada and his pure movement. This we should always be careful. That we understand from Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit was very conscious that his grandfathers were exalted devotees of the Supreme Lord, and they lived a life, based on dharma according to the desire of Krishna. He was conscious of this, therefore he also followed in their footsteps. And that is why he is called Pandunam Manavardhanaha. So, very beautiful phrases like this. If you study the Bhagavatam, one line, if you don't remember the entire shloka also, it is okay. At least a quarter of the shloka, if you remember such very interesting lines and try to understand the meaning of these, try to apply it in our daily lives, we can learn many things from Bhagavatam. So, Pandunam Manavardhanaha. Prayopavishto Gangayam. Praya Upavishtaha. Praya Upavishtaha means sitting and fasting. Where? Gangayam, on the banks of the Ganges. Anadritya, neglecting. Anadritya Adhirat, the acquired kingdom. Shriyam, and the opulences. So, this Mahārāja Parīkṣit, who was a Samrat, the great emperor, and his life was so wonderful. He is Pandunam Manavardhanaha. He increased the fame, name, and prestige of the Pandavas. And why did he actually, towards the end of his life, why did he go to the Ganga river, deciding to sit there and fast till death, without caring for his kingdom and opulence? What was the reason? This is the question asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Suta Goswami. So Prabhupada is saying here that Mahārāja Parīkṣit inherited the kingdom from his grandfathers, Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers, and he was doing well in the administration and was worthy of the good names of his forefathers. Right? So there was nothing undesirable in his opulence and administration. Everything was going on very well. He was materially very, very successful. Now, when we study the life of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, we also see that materially they were very, very successful. Right? Srila Srinivasa Acharya has composed the Shad Goswami Ashtaka, glorifying the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And there, Srinivasa Acharya says that these 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, they were Ashesha Mandala Pati. They were actually very, very, they were in a very powerful positions. They were landlords. They were from an aristocratic family. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they were finance minister and prime minister in the court of Nawab Hussain Shah of Bengal. That means they were materially very, very successful. But still, they all gave up. Tyaktva turnam ashesha mandalapati shrenim sada tuchhavat. They gave up all these exalted positions as though they are insignificant, tuchha. And they joined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, his service. Right? So same thing we see here also. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was in so much of opulence, and he was ruling the kingdom also very nicely. according to the instructions of the Lord. Everything was favorable for him. But still, why did he give up all those favorable circumstances and decide to fast till death, sitting down on the banks of the Ganga river? Huh? So, this is very astonishing. Can you please explain about this? That is what Shaunaka Rishi is asking. In other words, a person who is a truth seeker, he will always try to understand, oh, uh, everything was going on well in this life, in his life. But why did he decide to become a devotee? Why did he decide to take up spiritual life seriously? Can you please explain? So one should be interested to know such questions, such about the devotees, right? That is a truth seeker. That's what Shaunaka Rishi and all the other sages are. Many times, um, people ask this question, seeing devotees in our ISKCON movement also, the Hare Krishna movement, right? They say, oh, such young people, they're all in the prime of their youth, and they're all from very good background, family background. They're all very highly educated. Many of them are from premier institutes of the country, and they gave up all those, you know, good salaries and very good positions, and they gave up all that, and they've come to the temple to serve the Lord. Oh, what is that which motivated them? What made them, give up their lucrative careers and take up spiritual path full time? You know, that's a very interesting question. And when one understands the answer to this question, such such a devotee will also get inspired. Oh, I should also take spiritual life seriously, isn't it? So the whole Bhagavatam, the very circumstance in which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for the second time by by Shukadev Goswami to Mahārāja Parīkṣit, is full of such interesting incidents and connections, right? Let us see to the next shloka, text 11. Namanti yadpadaniketamātmanah Shivaya hanīya dhanāni shatravaha Katham savīra shriyamangadustyajām yuvaisha yuvaishato sahasubihi. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shaunaka Rishi continued, he was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There was nothing undesirable in his life. He was quite a young man and could enjoy life with power and opulence. So there was no question of retiring from active life. There was no difficulty in collecting the state taxes because he was so powerful and chivalrous that even his enemies would come to him and bow down at his feet and surrender all wealth for their own benefit. Mahārāja Parīkṣit was a pious king. He conquered his enemies, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. There was enough milk, grains, and metals, and all the rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially everything was satisfactory. Therefore there was no question of untimely giving up his kingdom and life. The sages were eager to hear about all this. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So Shaunaka Rishi is continuing to question about Mahārāja Parīkṣit. Namanti yat pada niketam atmanaha shivaya haniya. So here, namanti, bow down. Yat pada, whose feet? That is Mahārāja Parīkṣit's feet. Niketam, niketam, under. Atmanaha, atmanaha shivaya, for one's own welfare, for one's own auspiciousness. Haniya used to bring about dhanani, wealth. Shatravaha, enemies. So the first two lines of this shloka means Mahārāja Parīkṣit was such an exalted and powerful emperor that even his enemies, Kshatravaha, would come, and what they would do? Namanti yat padaniketam. They would actually bow down their heads at the feet of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. For what purpose? Atmanah Shivaya. For their own welfare, because they knew that, he's a very powerful king, and if we do not surrender to him, then our life will be in danger, right? So, thinking in that way, even Kshatravaha, these enemies, would come and bow down at the feet of Mahārāja Parīkṣit for their own welfare, for their own safety and protection. And what they would do? Haniya dhanani. They would pay a huge amount of taxes. They would bring wealth and they would pay taxes to Mahārāja Parīkṣit. So whenever a subordinate king pays tax to a superior king, it means the subordinate king is accepting the overlordship of the superior king or the emperor. That is the understanding. So they are all with great respect, even Kshatravaha, even the enemies, forget about the friendly kings. They will anyway accept Mahārāja Parīkṣit. But even the Kshatravaha, even the enemies, they were coming and bowing down in front of Mahārāja Parīkṣit, and they were actually giving huge sums of taxes, accepting the overlordship of Mahārāja Parīkṣit, and in this way they would feel safe and they would feel protected by Mahārāja Parīkṣit, right? But if that was the case, then Katham Savira Shriyamanga Dustyajam. Katham, how? Saviraha, he was such a chivalrous, such a powerful king. Shriyam, with full of opulences. Opulences, Shriyam means opulences. Anga, oh, Anga here refers, it's like a affectionate address, right? Shaunaka Rishi is affectionately addressing Suta Goswami as Anga. Anga means part of a body, part of the body. So when somebody, you will find this address many times in the Bhagavatam, Anga. When one person is referring to another person as Anga, it means you are so affectionate towards me, you're so dear to me, just like part of my own body. That's the meaning. So, Dustyajam means very difficult to give up. Tyaja means to give up. Dustyaja means insuperable. Insuperable means impossible to overcome. Very difficult to give up. That's the meaning, insuperable. So what is insuperable for people in this world generally? Shriyam Dustyajam. Shriyam means opulences. To give up attachment to our possessions, to our wealth, to our property, it is Dustyajam. It is very difficult, right? Once we become attached to our wealth and possessions, it's very, very difficult to give up. That is why Krishna says in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, those who are attached to material possessions and material enjoyments, in such minds, in the minds of such people, a resolute determination to practice bhakti will not come about. Why? Because they are so much attached to material possessions. But Krishna is saying, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, you give up everything and surrender to me, Krishna is saying. But people who are very attached to their material name, fame, position, wealth, and all these things, it's very difficult for them to give up their attachment towards these things. So they cannot wholeheartedly surrender to Krishna. That is why here it is said, Dustyajam. Generally, it is very difficult to give up attachment to one's opulences. But how this chivalrous king Mahārāja Parīkṣit gave up? Yuvaisha, Yuva. Now, it's not that Mahārāja Parīkṣit retired from his emperorship when he was about 80 years old, when he had become very old. No, he was Yuva. Yuva means he was very youthful. He was in the prime of his youth. Aishata, desired. Ustrashtum, to give up. Aho, exclamation. Saha, with. Asubhihi, life. How in the prime of his youth he gave up, he was ready to give up In fact, he gave up his kingdom, and he also was ready to give up his life, which is so dear to people, everybody. Okay, one thing is giving up opulence itself is dustyajam. It is so difficult. But giving up one's life is so dear to one. No, they say, Jaan hai to jahan hai. Jaan, if life is there, then you can win the whole world. But if you don't have life only, then what will you do? So that means for every human being, for every living entity, his or her life is so important. But Maharaj Parikshit was ready. Ustrushtam. Utsrashtam means to give up. He was ready to give up even his life. So how? Why did such a thing happen? Everything was happening so well for him, right? Everything was happening so well. But why did he give up? That is the question, right? So later on we will see Maharaj Parikshit's response to the when he got to know that he was going to die in 7 days because of the curse of the Brahmana boy Shringi. Parikshit Maharaj says, Nirveda Moolam Dvijashapa Rupam, he says. Uh, I was actually very attached to material possessions and my kingdom and throne and all of these things. Now, Krishna came in the form of this Dvijashapa Rupa. He came in the form of this curse of the Brahmana boy so that I can become detached, nirveda moolam, so that I can become detached from all these opulences. In fact, this is a favor Krishna has done upon me. This is the vision of a Bhagavatottama, a pure devotee of the Lord. He did not resist the curse, he did not rebel, he did not try to punish the person who has cursed him, but he took it as Lord's plan, right? So when everything was going on well, he was conscious of the Lord. Even when reversals came in his life, he was still conscious of the Lord. This is the quality of a pure devotee. Generally, when things are not so well in our life, when things are not going so well in our life, we forget Krishna and we start taking shelter of Asat Sainya, our own army, which is infallible army, right? My insurance policy, my relatives, and my so many things. We take shelter of these things. But Maharaj Parikshit gave up all these things. That's very important. He did not say, I will build one castle which nobody can, no snakes can enter. According to the curse, snake only will enter, kill me, isn't it? According to the curse. Now I will go and live in such a place that no snakes can come there and I will protect myself. No, Maharaj Parikshit had no such illusions. He was very clear that this is Krishna's will. 7 times, I'm so fortunate that I have got a notice that I'm going to die in 7 days. So let me make the best use of this time and fix my mind on Krishna before I give up my life. So this kind of a resolute determination to surrender to Krishna can can come about in only such a person's mind who is not attached to material opulences. That is what we learn from this incident, right? So everything was going on well, but he still retired and he gracefully retired. That's very interesting, isn't it? He gracefully accepted it as Lord's wish and he gave up. In fact, he actually exactly followed in the footsteps of the Pandavas, his grandfathers. When Yudhishthir Maharaj and the Pandavas get to know that Krishna had wound up his Leelas and he has gone back to the spiritual world, immediately Maharaj Yudhishthir also did the same thing. He handed over the kingdom to Maharaj Parikshit and he, along with his brothers and their wife Draupadi, they all traveled north. So they gave up they retire from their royal opulent life and dedicate their life to simply remembering Krishna and performing austerities. So Maharaj Parikshit also followed in their footsteps. Therefore, he is, as it is mentioned in the previous shloka, Pandunam Manavardhanaha. He actually followed exactly the footsteps of the grandfathers Pandavas. Hmm? So let us go to the next shloka. So Maharaj Parikshit, about him, so many shlokas are there. Hmm? That means we understand. Now these were the verses spoken by great sages who are all transcendentalists. Hmm? And a transcendentalist knows the worth of another transcendentalist, another pure devotee. It's very important, right? They did not say he's after all a grihastha, he's after all a king, hmm? He's after all a kshatriya who is much lesser than us. We are all brahmanas. No, they were not having any such kind of ideas because they knew that Maharaj Parikshit is a Bhagavatottama. Therefore, they're asking more about him. Text 12. शिवाय लोकस्य भवाय भूतये य उत्तमश्लोकपरायणा जनाः जीवन्ति नात्मार्थमसौ पराश्रयम् मुमोच निर्विद्य कुतः कलेवरम्. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shaunaka Rishi continued, those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So, even though the Emperor Parikshit was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Parikshit Maharaj was an ideal king and householder because he was a devotee of the personality of Godhead. A devotee of the Lord automatically has all good qualifications. And the emperor was a typical example of this. Personally, he had no attachment for all the worldly opulences in his possession. But since he was king for the all around welfare of his citizens, he was always busy in the welfare work of the public, not only for this life but also for the next. He would not allow slaughterhouses or killing of cows. He was not a foolish and partial administrator who could arrange for the protection of one living being and allow another to be killed. Because he was a devotee of the Lord, he knew perfectly well how to conduct his administration for everyone's happiness, men, animals, plants, and all living creatures. He was not selfishly interested. Selfishness is either self centered or self extended. He was neither. His interest was to please the Supreme Truth, personality of Godhead. The king is the representative of the Supreme Lord, and therefore the king's interest must be identical with that of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Hence, the activities of the citizens should be so coordinated that they can at the end go back home, back to Godhead. Under the administration of a representative king, the kingdom is full of opulence. At that time, human beings need not eat animals. There are ample food grains, milk, fruit, and vegetables so that the human beings as well as the animals can eat sumptuously and to their heart's content. If all living beings are satisfied with food and shelter and obey the prescribed rules, there cannot be any disturbance between one living being and another. Emperor Parikshit was a worthy king, and therefore all were happy during his reign. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. It's a very beautiful verse. This verse, even though it is applying specifically here to Maharaj Parikshit, but it applies to all the exalted pure devotees of the Lord. How a pure devotee leads his life. Shivaya lokasya. Shivaya means for the benefit, for the welfare, for the auspiciousness. Lokasya means of all the living beings in this material world. Shivaya lokasya bhavaya bhutaye. Bhavaya means for flourishing. Bhutaye for their economic development. Means for the welfare in general. For their happiness. Right? Ya uttama shloka parayana janaha. Janaha means people. Uttama shloka parayana. Uttama Shloka Parayana means those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead. Now, this word Parayana comes many times in the Bhagavatam. Narayana Parayana, this comes many times. One who is completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is called a Narayana Parayana. So here, Uttama Shloka Parayana. We have discussed this word Uttama Shloka before also. One of the names of Lord Krishna is Uttama Shloka because he is glorified by exalted devotees through transcendental poetry. Therefore, he is called Uttama Shloka. So, Uttama Shloka Parayana means those who have completely dedicated their lives for the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, how do these pure devotees of the Lord who are Uttama Shloka Parayana Janaha, how do they lead their life? They lead their life for Shivaya Lokasya, for the welfare of this entire world, for the people in general, Bhavaya Bhutaye, for their development, for their happiness, they dedicate their life. That means they are not selfish. One can become free from selfishness only by surrendering to Krishna and dedicating one's life for the service of Krishna. Only then one can actually become truly selfless. So, Prabhupada explains in the purport there are two types of selfishness, uh, concentrated selfishness and extended selfishness. Concentrated selfishness means me and my body should be always happy. That is concentrated selfishness. Extended selfishness means all the people connected with this body, they should be benefited. Let others, I don't bother about others. Only those who are surrendered, who are connected to this body, my family, my society, my community, this is called extended selfishness. But in the personality of pure devotees like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, there is neither concentrated selfishness nor extended selfishness. Why? Because they are Uttama Shloka Parayana Janaha. They have dedicated their life for the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What is the cause of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? The cause is Krishna says, everybody belongs to me and everybody should come back to me. This is the cause. This is what he has declared in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna does not say only Indians belong to me or only Hindus are my parts and parcels. He does not say this. He says everybody, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He says Mamaivamsho Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatanaha. All living entities. Aham Bija Pradapitaha. I am the seed giving father of all living entities in all species of life. Therefore, understanding this purpose of the Lord, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, he did not discriminate between one living entity and another living entity because he saw everybody as a part and parcel of the Lord. And he saw that I am a king and I'm supposed to be the representative of the Lord. And I must help all the living entities to attain the perfection of their life. I must manage my kingdom in such a way that everybody goes back to Godhead at the end of their life. So this is the idea with which Mahārāja Parīkṣit was ruling his kingdom. That is why Shivaya Lokasya, for the welfare of all living entities, Bhavaya Bhutaye, for their development and for their happiness, this Mahārāja Parīkṣit was ruling his kingdom. And Jivanti Natmartham Asau Parashrayam. Jivanti, he was living his life in this way, but not for Atma Artham, not for selfish interest. For the others' welfare only he was living. Asau Para Ashrayam. Asau means that. Para Ashrayam, shelter for others. So, even though he was leading such a selfless life, still Shaunaka Rishi is asking this question. His body was Parashrayam. He was actually giving shelter to so many living entities because he was the emperor. But Mumocha, he wanted to give up his body. Why? Nirvidya. Nirvidya means being freed from all attachment. Kutaha, for what reason? Kalevaram, material body. Kalevaram means his material body. His material body was actually para ashrayam. It was giving shelter for so many living entities. But being freed from all kinds of attachment, nirvidya, he wanted to mumocha, give up his material body. Kutaha, for what reason? Hmm? So that means a king like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, uh, because he's sitting in the position of a king, and there are so many living entities depending on him, he cannot simply give up his body like that. Because if there is no proper king in the country, there will be so much of unruliness. There will be so much of chaos. And Mahārāja Parīkṣit knew this. He was not an irresponsible person. Hmm? Then why did he give up, you know, his body, which was actually shelter for so many living entities? Why did he decide to give up his body? What was this circumstance around his passing away? Please explain to us. That is what Maharaj, that is what Shaunaka Rishi is asking. Hmm? So those who are devoted to the cause of the personality of Godhead live only for the welfare, development, and happiness of others. They do not live for any selfish interest. So even though the emperor was free from all attachment to worldly possessions, how could he give up his mortal body, which was shelter for others? You see the kind of questions that Shaunaka Rishi is asking. These questions themselves depict that Shaunaka Rishi was so intelligent and learned, advanced in knowledge. So, Mahārāja Parīkṣit, yes, personally he was very detached from all worldly possessions. So he might have decided to renounce his worldly life, go and sit on the banks of Ganga. Personally, okay for him. But he is also playing the role of a king. Hmm? And king means he is Naradeva, he is a representative of the Lord in the human body. Hmm? And uh, he has got specific duties to perform towards his kingdom, towards the citizens who have taken shelter of him. So how could he actually give up his duty as a king and give up and go to the banks of the Ganga, give up his kingdom? That was a question asked by Shaunaka Rishi, right? So from this question, we understand the multifaceted uh, life of a great personality like Mahārāja Parīkṣit, right? Personally, Mahārāja Parīkṣit was fully detached because he was a great devotee of the Lord. But as a king, he had his own duties to perform towards the citizens. So going away like this uh, is not apt. He should not have given up his body because his body had given shelter to so many citizens, so many living entities. So why did he do such a thing? This is what is Shaunaka Rishi's question. So in the purport, Prabhupada is mentioning 2-3 points. We'll just cover that. So here, one important thing is what kind of administration Mahārāja Parīkṣit was was making sure of. Prabhupada is saying here, he would not allow slaughterhouses or killing of cows. He was not a foolish and partial administrator who would arrange for the protection of one living being and allow another to be killed. Hmm? Because he was a devotee of the Lord, he knew perfectly well how to conduct his administration for everyone's happiness, men, animals, plants, and all living creatures. So this is very important. So, in the modern day, administration has all these loopholes, right? One side they say pets should be protected, right? And the other side they say you can kill cows in the slaughterhouse. Hmm? Now this is the duplicitous nature. One side they say pets like cats and dogs should be protected, but they are sending animals to the slaughterhouses, and they have their own justification for that. But Mahārāja Parīkṣit was not that kind of a short-sighted leader So he knew that all living entities are parts and parcels of Krishna, and all of them have equal rights to live. So he was not simply trying to protect one group of living entities and put other living entities into the slaughterhouse. That is why he actually protested when he saw Kali trying to kill the cow, right? And another interesting thing is in Mahārāja Parīkṣit's kingdom, the arrangement was such that, here Prabhupada is writing, the Supreme Lord wants all living beings to be obedient to him and thereby become happy. Therefore, the king's interest is to guide all subjects back to the kingdom of God. Hence, the activities of the citizens should be so coordinated that they can at the end go back home, back to Godhead. This is very clear. The purpose of Mahārāja Parīkṣit's administration was to train every citizen and enable him or her to achieve the ultimate goal of life of going back to Godhead. Therefore, you will find even though Parikshit Maharaj was taking care of the kingdom and Kali Yuga had actually begun, the scriptures say that as soon as Duryodhana passed away, Kali Yuga began. And after that, Lord Krishna also wound up his pastimes and went back to the spiritual world. And Kali Yuga, with full-fledged Kali Yuga began after that. But in spite of that, there were no evil effects of Kali in the administration in the kingdom of Mahārāja Parīkṣit. There were no slaughterhouses. There were no unnecessary killing of animals. There was no gambling. There was no illicit connections between men and women. There was no intoxication. So Mahārāja Parīkṣit was making sure that none of his citizens should indulge in any of these sinful activities, because these sinful activities will spoil the very purpose of human life, which is to actually become God conscious and go back to the spiritual world. So that's why it is said Raja Pratyaksha Devaha. It is said a king is actually a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the Supreme Lord wants all living entities to go back to Godhead. Therefore, a king has to manage his kingdom in such a way that everybody leads a sinless life, everybody leads a devotional life dedicated to Krishna's service, and thus they all go back to Godhead at the end of their life. This is the happiness program. This is the program of real happiness that Emperor Parikshit was implementing in his kingdom. So therefore, he was a great administrator, and there was no scarcity of anything in his kingdom. When proper dharmic principles are followed, there will be no scarcity of food or anything else in the kingdom. So there was full of opulence, and it was because of his personal presence that so nicely everything was going on in his kingdom. And all of a sudden, this Mahārāja Parīkṣit decides to give up his body, which had given shelter to innumerable living entities. So how was this justified? How was this possible? Why did Mahārāja Parīkṣit want to give up his worthy life? So this was the question asked by Shaunaka Rishi. So we will continue to read. There are some more shlokas spoken by Shaunaka Rishi, and after that Sutta Goswami begins to answer the question. So we'll close here. Anyone has any quick comments, any quick questions before we close? Okay, so we'll close the session today. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Vishwa Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
And thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.